Alright, what's up y'all, it's LakerFan here. As we're about to title today's video, we're here to ask, is slashing going to be the same in 2K25 as it was in 24? So, to recap everything that we have right here, and we'll get to all the details in just a second, but this is only going to take like 30 seconds to get through. So, in the last video, we showed the shot timing profile. There's going to be like a really skill-based one, a lesser skill-based one, and then a normal one as well when it comes to the gap that you're going to have in your green window versus how likely you are to make whites and stuff like that as well. So, with the layups, they get the same exact thing as the jump shots do. Now, I don't know if it's going to be the same for dunk meter. I actually just asked the question on Twitter to Mike Wang, so stay tuned with my Twitter if you want to see if we can get an update on that, but I highly doubt he's going to actually respond to that. We have the fluctuation of the dunk meter. So obviously you guys are familiar with 2K24 layup system, where when you would release a layup, it would pretty much, in the amount of time that your meter would start all the way to the finish of it, it would fluctuate the size of that meter and the ability to make the shot all the way until the end. Whereas dunk meters were literally, as soon as it flashes on your screen that the meter is popping up, it's locked into that as far as the size that you're gonna get on the dunk itself. So that made a lot of things to do with like 5 out super good in 2K24, because if you had someone helping off the corner and they were dropping for like help defense essentially off a rotation, or someone dropping from the corner to just stop a dunk from someone getting beat at the top of the key, or even to, you know, defend against pick and rollers as well, who were maybe a little bit more driving dunk oriented like myself, it was something that is really tough to stop, because if they did rotate late, it's going to be locked in on that meter size, and no matter how much you do recover eventually, it's not going to mean anything because that's the meter size that was locked in. The only way you could do anything about that is to kick them out of the animation itself, and that was very luck-based RNG, stuff like that, that you can't really bank on too much. So nowadays, we're going to be having a fluctuating dunk meter, and that's definitely an interesting thing to be looking at as well. We have no more whistle, that's been removed. I listed right here, there was some confusion that I was having about pro play, and the actual meaning behind that and the inconsistencies of how those animations would actually pop off, because they're out here talking again about like thousands of animations being added, and obviously when it comes to ones that you can even equip, it's probably going to be a whole lot more likely that it's in the dozens range, not thousands of animations that are going to be coming out. Because Tonic actually put me on to how pro play animations trigger, and there's stuff like in the Jokic hop jumper, there's like one specific animation that when you're running backwards, it does some crazy like pro play animation where it's supposed to, you know, be that fluctuated in, and it only happens very rarely in a certain angle, and that's the only time it pops off. So that's what he means when he talks about thousands of animations, because every different animation that you equip has like sub animations in it that kind of pop off on certain angles and stuff like that. I think like Dirk dribble pull up is kind of like that too, I believe, where if you're too close to the basket, it'll do some different timing. You know, we have slow fade, stuff like that. I've talked about it in the previous videos and stuff like that. We'll talk about it later. But anyway, lobs have been reworked a little bit as well. We'll get into all the details now and go over the Mike Wang tweets and stuff like that. Alright, so this will be a shorter video than the shooting one, for sure, because like I said, they did not drop as many details on stuff like that, and a lot of these are kind of somewhat useless animation. This is what I was talking about with like the thousands of pro play animations, you know. He's talking about the layups. New packages for Shea, Kawhi, Tyrese Maxey, Monk, Reeves, Clay, Vucevic. That's actually interesting that they're adding big man ones as well, and Wemby got his own layup package as well. So let's go from bottom to top, because I marked these in like chronological order, and actually that's not entirely true, because a lot of this is just from August 1st, and then we have a couple of these that were toward the end, so I lied. It's not actually chronological order, but there's about like 8 or 9 different tweets that we have right here, and we're just going to go over all of them because, again, this won't take too long. So I hope you all enjoy the video. If you do, feel free to drop a like, sub if you're new, turn on noties, all that good stuff, and like always, try to win 1,000 likes. Alright, so as I mentioned in the little brief that we had at the beginning of the video, layup timing is going to be fluctuating in terms of the timing profiles. Like, so you have the real player percentage, which is just going to be your timing is off. You have the low, normal, and high. So if you didn't really catch the drift on how these shot timing profiles are going to work, let's actually just backtrack and go to the shooting one. So as far as the risk reward, I'm just going to read this word for word right here. With low risk reward, you will still make shots if your timing is slightly off, but the bonus for good timing shots is much smaller. With high, the green window is larger with a bigger bonus, but there's no margin for error if you miss it. So with high, it's greens only, and then with low, it's less of a green window, but more ability to hit whites. So honestly, it's kind of like more of a debate between like allowing you 2 options between. Last year was obviously like it functions as if it's high, where it's greens only, green or miss, simple as that. That's how it went for layups, dunks, jump shots, everything involved. And then obviously with low, you'd be opening yourself up to how previous 2Ks worked, where whites can go in, maybe it's a little bit harder to green. I'm assuming with the fact that they make it greens only, they definitely made the green windows bigger. I could be wrong about that. Shout out 2K Labs, we'll probably have a promo with them this year as well. So we'll definitely find out news like that, and you can look to me for the promo code if you guys are interested in looking for that. I'm definitely gonna be teaming up with them. So yeah, with the layups, like I was just talking about, you're gonna have the layup timing profiles. And I believe, as he's saying right here, it's gonna be a separate type of profile, so you don't have to have it as the same thing as your jump shot timing profile. So if you wanted to be a little bit more lenient with your layups and be able to make more whites but not be green only, and have a bigger green window, you could probably put your layup timing to low and then your jump shot timing to high or normal, whatever you want to do. Or some people might just rock out with double normal, honestly. I think that might be something that people do, but obviously there will be a lot of people out there that want to run it on high because they want to feel rewarded for greening the shot and, have an easier ability to do so as well. But if your internet is maybe a little bit rougher on the on the kind terms of that, obviously you'd probably want to rock with something like low or normal. That's just like the realistic way of going about it. Or layup timing you can set to real player percentage. You can't do that for jump shots. But anyway, here's the note on the dunk timing. So dunk timing is always on for skill dunks. Obviously, we're not going to be getting dunk meters and not have to time them. Anyway, you can still dunk without using that particular mechanic, aka you can, do the same old stuff. Hold your X, hold up on the right stick, hold to the side for the directional dunks, stuff like that, yada yada. The dunk meter logic has also been improved so that instead of the window size being determined just at the start of the dunk, it dynamically adjusts throughout the entire dunk sequence to better reflect defensive impact. Now, what I hope this doesn't do from a bias slasher's perspective is I do hope that we do get, like he's talking about, the fluctuation of that dunk meter size. But what I really hope doesn't happen is people who are super late arriving defenders can just kick you out of the dunk or make it way smaller, when if you think of it in a realistic sense, I mean, the whole point of being able to dunk on somebody is the fact that you really weren't impeded by their body being there in the first place. It's more just so that it's going to be kind of annoying for you to deal with the contact through the dunk. I don't know if you guys are getting what I'm talking about. When I picture this stuff, I'm thinking like a Aaron Gordon coming off like a pick and roll or like a cut or something like that, and someone's a late arriving defender. They're not going to stop Aaron Gordon from dunking the ball. Now, they might make it a really unfortunate collision for him after the dunk has already happened, but like a late arriving help defender, it's more often than not going to get and one boomed on or just straight up like dunked on, simple as that, against an elite finisher. Now, in terms of like a early arriving help defender who gets there sooner than anticipated and stuff like that, they're in good guarding position. They're going to be really able to impede that dunk from happening very well. But I don't know, it's just a tough thing to gauge because, like I said, skilled dunkers would still dunk over people as well. And what I really, really hope we don't see in this year's game is the same logic on dunk meters as it was last year. Because let me just tell you guys, bro, and this is why I say this title of the video, it actually scares me in a sense, because there's no way we could possibly have the same style of the dunk meter as we did last year in terms of like the stupid things about it. So let's just stop beating around the bush and tell you what I'm talking about. What I hated about the dunk meter this year is that your interior defense and size and all that stuff did not matter in terms of making the meter smaller or bigger. It could be a 5'7" defender sitting in the dead zone of the paint a little bit, out to stop you from getting those big meters, because if you are underneath the basket and slightly behind it, you're going to get like, a huge meter and stuff like that no matter who you are. But the problem is that when you're like a 5'7" minimum weight, no interior defense, no block, no anchor, no nothing, you can still give people the smallest dunk meter possible just because the game thinks you're in good guarding position, even though realistically, anybody that's like 6'6" and under is getting boomed on in those situations. And it's just a very unrealistic way that the game worked. And this year was probably the worst the dunk meter could ever be. So my hope is that it's nothing like it was last year, because honestly, they just couldn't do any worse if they just completely overhaul the entire system. If they just tear it down and come up with a whole new one from scratch, it's very likely to still be better. So anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. But that's my kind of concern when it comes to how little information we've been getting on the finishing things that are related to all the news in this, August kind of pre-September. Alright, so next up, I didn't put this in the tab like for the notes that I had on it or anything like that, but it's just a quick little, sidebar that is still related to slashing. So we have a question, Q&A right here. have there been any improvements to the physics when two people clash in the air? Now, what comes to my mind when I think of something like this is, for instance, like alley-oops in the air. Like, if someone just happens to run into the space that you're standing below, they'll just kick you out of it entirely. You know, and that's what I'm thinking of. Like, lobs are such a wishy-washy kind of mechanic where sometimes it'll just lock you into a contact lob, and that's just, like, already terrible in its own as well. But then other times, you'll just, you know, have a guy right underneath the basket, and then it doesn't even press X or Y or anything like that. It doesn't go for a tip on the pass, doesn't go for a block to, like, you know, actually block the lob dunk itself. The dude just runs into him, you know, and I do that sometimes too because it's a good mechanic as far as stopping it, but it's a stupid mechanic in terms of the balance of the game. So I'm hoping that also has some improvement in that sense as well. But he says the physics team spent a lot of time improving our player-to-player in-air collisions to make them more reliable and to maintain players' momentum/velocity better. Again, that doesn't really, it's pretty vague. It doesn't speak to exactly what I'm talking about at all. And if anything, I guess, like, it's trying to justify that a player in movement will be less easy to knock out of movement. So I'm hoping that that's kind of what I'm pertaining to. All right, so here's another kind of note that I'm a little bit concerned about. So Mike goes into a little bit more detail on a previous tweet that he had about bounce alley-oops and how they would contextually happen. So we'll just read this word for word. I have a better expansion on this, but we'll just read it word for word. Some players were getting bounce alleys by accident, so in NBA 2K25, bounce alleys happen organically when you double tap Y, aka the same way you're going to throw alley-oops, and the lane is clearly wide open and the players involved are appropriate. So he's saying that you're just going to throw lobs and the bounce lobs will mix themselves into it, and I guess that's a fine thing, you know, that they're going to pop off when they're supposed to happen in the best terms possible. But I don't know, that leaves a lot of variance, you know what I mean, in terms of the speed of them. Maybe bounce lobs are slower than regular lobs, so that's like when your player just randomly pops one off. I don't know if that's something people really like, you know what I mean. The consistency behind it is something that would be nice to get out of lobs, and granted, they're doing this in an attempt to make something else actually way more consistent, which I do appreciate. But with the A and B button combined, you're going to get a self lob, which is going to be a completely different mechanic from throwing lobs to your teammates. So that's really cool that we're actually finally going to get a custom button mapping for self lobs compared to, you know, mixing it in with the ones to your teammates and stuff like that. I'm actually thinking you're gonna see this a lot more often now, like self lobs, and I think this would be kind of cool when you can like kind of find a way to mix in the right timing to actually want to do something like this to yourself. But I'm not exactly sure where you're gonna see that most likely. I guess on ones, you know, it could be something that you might see, because funny enough, you know, like those are even kind of hard to still get to pop off, even if you don't have any teammates to actually accidentally throw them to. But I don't know, we'll have to see. And we'll have to also see if they're very easy to stop, the self lobs. So it's a big W for the ability to throw self lobs, and just this mechanic in general is going to see a lot more use, but it does add a little bit more variance to the actual alley-oop attempts and stuff like that. So not sure how to feel about that. Not to mention how like special delivery allows you to throw alley-oops off the backboard and stuff like that too, and you don't have any control over that. So just a lot of variance in terms of all that stuff that's mixed in with that. Anyway, moving along, as I already listed this, it's not like we have to go over this again. RIP Whistle. Whistle will not be in 2K25, and that's good news in my book. You can debate that if you want. I just like, me personally, I don't like the bailouts to bad takes, like when people go for a really horrible dunk and they just get bailed out by a foul, which it will still happen. Obviously, like it's not that there's going to be zero fouls, but Whistle not being in definitely tones that down by quite a bit, I'd have to assume. So how that pertains to your shooting and stuff like that, I'm not sure. I know there's some post scores that are a little bit disgruntled with that, because obviously, you know, on their up and unders and stuff like that, it played a pretty big factor as well. But either way, I'm happy to see it go. Also, speaking of happy to see it go, this caught on very late in the year. But people had the Kobe triple threat animation on, and you would flick up on your right stick, and it would give you a Kobe jab step, right, where you would kind of nudge your way into the paint, and inside centers were doing this like crazy, and it was completely taken over Pro-Am late in the year, and it was pretty rough when you combine that with the fact that the dead zone dunk meter is really overpowered. And he never responded to my tweet asking about if the meter fluctuation was going to impact standing dunks very much, because I'm interested to see how the dead zone even is still featured in, as far as whether that's a, you know, good position to be in or not. Because, I don't know, you might see standing dunks get really nerfed this year if it's, you know, just deemed a less valuable place to be in the dead zone, you know? But if dead zone still works the same way, even if the meter fluctuates, it's not going to matter because the game's going to see that as a really good take even still. So here's my thing. I'm hoping that, you know, the actual time that you go for a block and stuff like that is going to matter. I'm hoping that interior defense and block rating itself matters a whole lot more than it did this year. Holy moly, it was the most useless year ever to have high block rating, in my opinion. If you were in good guarding position, you would get the smallest dunk meters possible regardless. So as far as how overpowered the standing dunks were, you didn't even have to have block to stop them, honestly. So, I don't know. I'm hoping to just see a lot more value on block rating into your defense, stuff like that. And obviously, you know, I hope they don't just entirely nuke the standing dunks, but I do hope that there is a very good counter in place, essentially. Because there definitely should still be some value to being an elite dunker below the basket, but if you're an elite defender that's matched up with that, it's definitely respectable, in my opinion, if you're going to give the defenders a whole lot more reason to fight back. So, anyway. He said you can no longer perform the jab steps when standing under the basket. You'll get pump fakes now instead. So when you flick up on the stick, it will be a pump fake instead. Now, that does not pertain to the aggressive breakdown combos or the normal breakdown combos that I was doing in the year as well. If you want to check out that video, oh my God, that LaMelo breakdown combo was crazy on that 6'8" inside that I had toward the end of the year that I didn't really make a whole lot of videos on. But bro, it was a crazy, crazy animation. You could do that from like the free throw line and it would walk you down in like less than 3, maybe 2 seconds, and you'd be able to get into the dead zone on, you know, builds like that. Or I had the normal breakdown combo for the aggressive breakdown on my 6'10 pluses, and that was even still pretty decent at getting you into the dead zone as well. So we'll have to be on the lookout for that. I'm not gonna lie, I will be a little bit of a cheeser in that sense if it's still in there. But anyway, as far as scoopers, they got nerfed a little bit, so you're going to see they got a small nerf, better balance the risk versus reward of using those types of finishes. Totally understood. I agree with it. And honestly, I'd even argue that floaters might need a little bit of a nerf too, but I don't know. We'll see. You know, with the timing profile and stuff like that, it's going to be really interesting to see how layups are actually good or bad in this year's game. Because I got to say, in 24, they were actually elite for the first time ever, in my opinion. The fact that there's timing on them is one thing, and then the fact that there's animations like Sabonis and Booker that give the craziest floater animations ever. Then you have things like scoops and stuff like that mixed in as well. Honestly, driving layups were so good in this year's game, but the standing layups were so bad. So the finishing was like the weirdest thing ever in 2K24, and I hope that it's nothing like what it was. Layups can stay a little bit, in my opinion, but man, the dunk system needs a whole overhaul, and I'm really hopeful that they're getting that. So anyway, as far as pro play dunks, this is where the confusion tab was in my notes. What in the world? I don't know, bro. Like, I'm not really a big fan of the fluctuating dunk animations that play into like a lot of dunk packages. You know, in a fun game, I totally agree. I'd love to, like, Tonic does this all the time, and it bugs me so much. Tonic runs the most ridiculous, stupid animations ever out of, you know, trying to make it fun content. But man, like, when you get like a random dunk to pop off, like some 360s, you get some windmills, you get some like crazy slow animations or some crazy fast animations. In a game where the dunk meter actually makes sense, I think the consistency of the timing would be very nice when, you know, it's not just a 2,000 millisecond green window, or on the contrast of that, you have like a 2 millisecond green window on those tiny ones. So in a good game that actually has the balance on that dunk meter very well, like I said, the consistency of it would be very nice, and I don't foresee myself running NBA player dunk packages just because of stuff like that, you know. And also, I mean, Edwards and LeBron already have the dunk packages in the game and stuff like that. I'm guessing maybe he means like if you added more like contact dunk animations, you know what I mean? That'd actually be kind of cool. Like if you give LeBron like a specific contact dunk animation, it'd be really cool for sure. But obviously they kind of have their contact dunks already narrowed down to like a lot of subcategories, like the bigs, the smalls, the elites, the pros, stuff like that, off 1, off 2. So I don't know. I don't know if they have any plans for doing stuff like that, but he says they added 500 new pro play dunks, way more than we normally add in a typical year. Like I said, I think the consistency that you want to get on stuff like that would be very convenient. And also, I mean, they're talking about like, you know, 1,500 new layup animations, again, pro play, and that is the lack of consistency. And that's where, you know, a lot of this, like the crap that my point guards talk, and stuff like that is they're talking about how big the layup meter is. They're talking about how big the dunk meter is, and you know, or like even previous years where the dunk meter was like maybe not quite as good. It's like, yeah, it's probably an easier thing to time in like all reality when it comes to the dunks and layups versus the jump shots. But the thing is, jump shots, a standstill jumper gets the exact same speed. You know, unless you're talking this year, it got speed ups and slowdowns and stuff like that, which was really bad. And then they toned it down a whole lot in terms of how often you got that. But anyway, my point is, standstill jump shots, dribble pull-ups, you're going to get consistency a lot of times on those animations. What you don't get consistently very often is when you're doing layups and dunks. And that's why I'm saying, like, narrowing down your amount of dunk packages that you have on is very helpful when it comes to actually timing them. As far as what you want to do in terms of, you know, triggering them with your stick, if you're only doing the up on the stick, side on the stick, that's totally up to you, you know. I even think stuff like that, if in previous games you want to like map it where your dunk animations give you something really good and maybe conservative when you're holding up on the stick, something, you know, flashy if you want to show out with down on the stick, and then with the side ones you probably want a tomahawk that actually just gets it more to the side, exactly how you'd want it. But again, that's totally up to the, you know, consumer. That's totally up to you as far as the user and how you want to use them. But again, for me, I'm going to want consistency on the timing because I definitely prefer to meter dunk nearly everything I can. We'll see how that, you know, is going into next year. I'm not sure how respectable or like doable the dunk meter is going to be. So we're going to have to totally wait and see, but they should have news on the builder coming very soon. I'm hoping we get some more gameplay news though too, but we'll have to see as far as that goes. Anyway, that's all for, you know, all this stuff. They had literally nothing in the courtside report. I'll pull it up for you guys real quick. Like if you scroll through here on this courtside report, there is nothing talking about layups or dunks except for in the very beginning, they're talking about the pro play stuff, you know, talking about you know, thousands of signature jump shots, yada yada. You got all types of actually, funny enough, they're talking about dribbling animations, signature shot animations, off the ball animations, and motion styles. They actually didn't even mention the layups and dunks in here, even though that is still, you know, narrow it down. That's the remaining ones, most likely, probably. But anyway, yeah, they had the dribble engine. They got all types of, you know, stuff about the I don't even know what the heck they're talking about here. But anyway, like signature go-to shots, shot canceling, shot timing profile. We talked about all this stuff in the previous video. The custom visual cues, how you can set the visual cue wherever you want it. All types of stuff about shooting, rhythm shooting, you know, with the pro stick. You got some defense talks as well here and there. You know, defensive movement system. Again, the signature motion styles, contest system, stuff like that. They didn't talk anything about finishing at all. So, I don't know. It leads me to the title of the video again. Will finishing be the exact same in 2K25 as it was in 24? I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned about that, personally. But, I don't know. We'll have to see when we get more info. And as of now, the lack of info is starting to make me a little bit worried that it may be a little bit similar. But anyway, that's all for the video. I hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, feel free to drop a like, sub if you're new to noties, all that good stuff. Like always, try to 1,000 likes. And if you made it to the end of the video, put slash or put finish in the comment search for it all the way through. Anyway, that's all for the vid. Next video you guys see will probably be talking about the builder. That's when we're getting the news pretty soon. It should be within the next couple of days. So stay on the lookout for that as well. But anyway, that's all. Appreciate y'all for watching. And that's Hades, man. Peace.